I barely speak about my life story like that. And I think that's one thing that someone don't have to write about, right? So I will try not to dwell into the whole picture. But for you and maybe a few Zimbabweans to get it. You see, when I was born, Ron, I don't think I was just born with my own issues, as in my own family, as my father, my mother. It was also my grandfather and my grandmother. Because you see, my grandfather originally came from Malawi, Mangochi, you see, and my grandfather is still a chief. He died a chief, ran away there from duties, and we still got land there, we still got a village in Mangochi. The Bwanali clan still exists. My grandfather moved to Zimbabwe for opportunities that he wanted to be self-made, in a sense. So you also find that where my blood clan landed, we also got a family name there, Bwanali, in my town and whatnot. And where I am from, Kadoma, it's mostly the Malawians marrying the Shonas. And the trick to that then was, the Malawians were not so favored then. So they were then taking girls, you know, the Shona people's children, in a sense. So it's also like how we'll see it here, in a sense whereby if I am to date maybe a Zulu, some people may find that not so cool. So it was something like that. So the issue now is my grandmother comes from actually like the deep Shona family, and these are like part of the royal Shona family. So technically, a few will know that technically my grandmother's surname is technically Nika. So Nika means technically country. So growing up, I knew like my uncles, you know, especially like my great uncles, most of them, they were in the army, police, you know, like they were major people. My aunt, one of my aunts, she was the general manager of Nyore Nyore. It was like, I would say L'Oreal or a Foschini type situation, yeah. Very educated, Tabia. And of course, my other aunt that passed on, she was also very educated. She died also very young, miraculously. My uncle, James Bwanali, Benson Bwanali. James Bwanali is my grandfather. Benson Bwanali, he was technically like one of the best guitarists in my town. He played for the hotel for like 25 years or something like that. So this marriage they did between a Shona and a Malawian caused chaos. So my grandmother was technically disowned. So being disowned, we already grew up with issues. So finances weren't good in our home. You know, we knew like, okay, our rich uncles are there, our aunts, you know, like I'll tell you, before my aunt died, like I mean, she was like the breadwinner of the family, you know, this African lifestyle whereby you depend on one person to feed everybody. And all the festivities and stuff, you buy stuff for everybody in the families and stuff like that. And of course with the help of the other uncles and stuff. So family ties in Zim, I mean, I'm directly connected to the bloodline of the Shona, you know, through my grandmother and also my father, because my father, where it comes to my father, I'm gonna get there just now. So my grandmother's family already had an issue with it, and my grandfather in Zimbabwe, he had nothing there. So then we started off from a foot off. Let's try a lot, you know, just knowing that, okay, our cousins, our nephews, they're rich and whatnot. Even to this day, I mean, I have a big family there, it's all scattered around. Some of them are in the UK, some of them are here in South Africa, some of them are in the UK, in the US, Canada. I've got family in different places. So at the end of the day, to my father's story, so then my mother got married, you know, and she had 3 kids before me. So me, I'm the 4th. So funny story is, these 2 houses, they're looking at each other. So my mother was married at this house, and there was this feather on this other side, right? So he chopped my mother there. I don't know what it was like in the in the 80s, you know. It was just freaking, we just want independence, man. And one thing I love about my life, though it was like terrible, is I was made in love, you know what I'm saying? That forbidden love. So I was made, and being born, my father's identity was uncertain. So there's these two guys here, and both of them, in a sense, one is taking responsibility, but he's not the one directly married to my mom's. And then he's not allowed to be taking responsibility that time. It's not even, so my name technically, it has to be either this one's like, oh no, that kid is not mine. So it was a predicament, and so my mother, I had to keep my mother's name. So the funny thing and also the great thing with me is when I kept my mother's name, my grandfather was alive when I was born and my grandmother. So with all this commotion, I was technically left for my grandmother and my mother and my grandfather. So technically I was just born and went to my grandmother's home. That's where I grew up, and she taught me most of what I know. And then the pops that's alive, my pops, would come visit. I would occasionally see him because then my little brother was born after that. But then for me, it was always a thing of I carry my mother's surname alone. And then I've got like 5 siblings in this one home. And they all have different surnames, and they know their mother directly, their father directly. And then I've got another set of family with like 7 members, of which that's where I haven't been in like 37 years. So why I haven't been there in 37 years is because I was born in my grandmother's house, and with the tensions, my mother was upset, and my grandfather was upset. They made me theirs, so I grew up theirs. So I remember a time when my little brother went to stay in the village, actually, because he grew up there. I was to go, but now my mother did not want that. She wanted me closer. And then from there, I was actually separated with my little brother for years. You know, it's even taking us time to relate and understand one another, because you grew up with the pops and I grew up with my moms. And then also from growing up, I had to, so I can say growing up, man, I felt mostly, to be honest, like unwanted within, a lot of questions, hence why I think I live more in my head, because it's been at school, you know, sometimes you've got these occasions whereby many people are coming with their parents, and my mother's always there, my grandmother, you know, and my sisters, you know, so I always had that lady support, which I appreciate, you know. And for a man sometimes, you know, it gets to a point it starts to damage you. So at 14, when they sent me to the school, it was almost like a way of me breaking from the female collective for me to start to become a man. And also, I mean, going there, you know, growing up, my grandmother was everything. And then when I came back the first term from school, my grandmother had a stroke. The whole left side could not function. You know, I left her home, I came back, and everybody was not there, man. And my grandmother couldn't even speak proper. I just broke down and cried, man. Like, I think since that day is when I lost my smile. And I think I only recovered my smile again when I think I was like 2 years in, when I created Lip Connect Africa. So that's almost like 15 or so years later. Because to me it felt like everything I was trying to show people care for me died. So then I just wanted to live away from everybody. And also growing up, I mean, it's not like then Zimbabwe started to change. So my pops, I mean, always would reach out when he can, but we grew up in a world whereby phones were not existent. So then by the time the phone started to be existent, I just like I just wanted to leave people alone, you know, like because growing up already, your identity is in question. Your lifestyle is not so happy. Uh, you know, there's dynamics because when I was born, I'm number four, so there's also like some tension sometimes with your with one or two of your siblings because it's almost like there's a dynamic of favoritism in there. So at the end of the day, man, I just felt like it was a resentment situation, and I know it wasn't directly like that, but now that I'm here at 37, it feels like that. So a few years then I started whiling, man, because my mind was just starting to get heavier, you know, because I'm like, shit, I'm a man, I'm leading myself, but from what reflection, I know that I should get that reflection from me because I am my own man. And now I understand that I didn't need to actually have directly to understand that part, even though it bothered me, you know. But I learned to build me and to be satisfied because I spent my entire life almost alone, you know, and building myself. And also in school back in the day, you know, I would stutter when I talk, so you know people would laugh at me and stuff like that. So I was already feeling like, man, I was just like an outcast in a sense. And even if you look at my campus years and just my lifestyle, I'm more an outcast, do my own thing. But I got a lot of people, I mean, like, but it's just that I wasn't born embraced like that. You know, I had a lot of my friends, but the people who were to love me so much, I felt like I was neglected a bit, so I just wanted to be far away. So that's one of those reasons why then I never went to my village. I would go to Zim. I think the 20 years I've been here, I went to Zim for four times. I think 4 times, yeah. And all those times, I mean, when I say I'm going home, I'm going to my grandmother's house, my mother's house. So and sometimes, I mean, I felt like, okay, I need to build my own life. And you know, it's not like there's much to take this or to build a port, you know. So as a man, sometimes you start to crack, you know. So then I started to while, and then my mother called my pops. Of course, that's when we sat down and just started to put some structures, you know. It wasn't like he told me, look, you got this, you got that, you got. I already knew, like, look, my pops, there was that house. It was easy to understand. Okay, so how we were born is like the Shaunas is my father is a Shauna. Then they will have like a house in the sort of ghetto or in the townish, and then they will have like a whole sort of, you know, village, you know. So that's like where the hectares will come from. So that was like most of Zimbos who like grew wealth in terms of money. Like Zimbos with money, most of that money comes from agriculture. You know, that's like one of the biggest things. Like we all Zimbos have got a grandma, a grandfather that farmed, or we have got certain people who farm and that's for a living, and they make a living. So the issue now is when, say, land reform happened, of course, farming was not then done on a major scale. So there's a few things, of course, to be addressed, but those would be some of the things why I haven't been to my farm officially, and everybody's waiting for me to arrive there. Yeah, my pops actually, like, he's buying some solar panels. I told him I'm gonna help him out with an inverter and some lithium batteries. I think in the same breath I wanna also do that for my moms, so that the electricity issues next time I'm in Zim, they go away, man. Yeah, and as time goes, try to address the issues there. You know, everything takes time. I don't think people understand, and I like it when people sometimes just talk, because it's easy to talk, but the doing part is a whole lot of story. But yeah, man, appreciate. Thanks for asking, and this is for educational purposes only.